Have you ever confidently explained a complex concept to someone, and you leaned back feeling incredibly smug about your brilliant analytical mind?
Oh, sure.
Right. Only to realize hours later, maybe while staring at the ceiling in bed, that you completely and fundamentally misunderstood it.
Yes. The
Yeah.
classic 2 a.m. realization.
Exactly. I mean, you might have been holding court at a dinner party, passionately breaking down a recent shift in economic policy or how a new piece of technology works.
And everyone was nodding along.
Everyone was nodding. Then, in the quiet of the night, your brain casually points out a massive gaping hole in your logic.
Yeah.
Or, on the flip side, you've likely watched someone argue fiercely about a topic they clearly know absolutely nothing about, yet they remain utterly convinced of their own undeniable expertise.
We see that all the time.
We really do?
Yeah.
And if you are nodding along as you listen to this, you are definitely not alone. These aren't just, funny, awkward moments of passing confusion. According to the sources we are tearing into today, these everyday occurrences are actually glaring glimpses into one of the most dangerous cognitive traps human beings fall into.
They really are. We are looking at several striking excerpts today from an essay titled The Grand Illusion of Intelligence. And it's fascinating because society has conditioned us to view intelligence as this, as an absolute shield against ignorance.
Right. Like, if you're smart, you're safe.
Exactly. But the central argument here flips that entirely on its head. It suggests that our greatest cognitive strengths are precisely what morph into our deepest psychological vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
The phrase "I know" is highlighted not as a declaration of mastery, but as arguably the most dangerous statement in human thought.
Wow. And the mission of our deep dive today is to explore the mechanics of that danger. We are going to examine how high intellect can actually act as a mechanism for self-deception. And we are going to give you a framework to spot this grand illusion in the wild, and more importantly, in the mirror.
Because if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look closely at how our culture treats knowledge and authority. I mean, we are remarkably quick to mock the overtly ignorant.
Oh, absolutely. Society loves pointing fingers at people who clearly lack basic facts.
But we almost never confront educated, highly articulate people about their overconfidence. The assumption is that because a person possesses a high IQ or a prestigious degree, their unwavering certainty must be entirely justified.
Yeah, we just give them a pass.
We do. And the source material makes a sobering historical observation on this exact dynamic. History's absolute worst decisions on a geopolitical or societal scale often don't originate from fools.
No.
They come from rooms filled with brilliant minds who get trapped in the echo chambers of their own intellect. The more intelligent you believe you are, the more vulnerable you actually become to this trap.
Like a camouflage.
It is. Intelligence, the very trait we celebrate, often serves as the perfect, impenetrable camouflage for our deepest self-deceptions.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the actual mechanics of how we manage to trick ourselves are wild. To understand the foundation of this, the source material points us to a landmark concept defined back in 1992.
By Frank Keel and Leonid Rosenblit.
Yes, they coined a term for this specific blind spot. They called it the illusion of explanatory depth.
And the methodology of Keel and Rosenblit's study brilliantly isolates this illusion. They gather participants and ask them a seemingly straightforward question. Just on a scaled 1 to 7, how well do you understand the everyday objects around you?
And they didn't ask about, like, quantum physics or macroeconomics.
Oh, no. They asked about things like toilets, zippers, and bicycles.
Everyday stuff.
Right. And naturally, the participants confidently claimed a very high level of understanding. They interact with these objects multiple times a day, so the assumption was total intuitive mastery.
I mean, it makes sense. You flush your toilet, you zip your jacket, you pedal a bike.
Yeah.
The brain automatically logs that repeated successful interaction as deep mechanical comprehension.
But the researchers completely shattered that assumption by flipping the script in the second phase of the experiment. They handed the participants a blank piece of paper and asked them to write out a detailed, step-by-step causal explanation of how those specific objects mechanically functioned.
Oh, wow.
The result was a universal collapse in confidence. When forced to actually articulate the mechanics of a bicycle's chain-to-gear ratio or the fluid dynamics of the water flow in a toilet's S-trap,
People completely froze.
they realized they were entirely clueless. They had to re-rate their knowledge, and the scores plummeted. The underlying psychology here reveals a massive blind spot. Our brains seamlessly confuse mere recognition with actual knowledge.
Recognition versus knowledge.
Right. We live in an advanced society surrounded by collective knowledge, the vast repository of things humanity as a whole knows how to do. And our brains subconsciously download this environmental competence and trick us into believing that this collective knowledge is our own personal, hard-earned expertise.
I'm just imagining someone handing me a piece of paper right now and demanding I draw the internal mechanism of a zipper slider,
Good luck.
right? Showing exactly how it interlocks the teeth perfectly every single time. I'd probably draw two parallel squiggly lines, a triangle in the middle, and just write the word magic at the bottom.
You wouldn't be the only one.
But before that test, if you asked me if I knew how a zipper worked, I would have absolutely said yes. That right there is the illusion of explanatory depth in action. We mistake our superficial operational familiarity for deep structural expertise.
And that superficial familiarity feels indistinguishable from real knowledge until it is actively stress-tested. We walk around wearing the collective genius of thousands of years of human innovation, assuming we are the geniuses ourselves simply because we know which buttons to push.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Logically, you would assume that being highly intelligent would be the ultimate cure for this illusion.
You would think so.
Yeah, you would think a brilliant analytical mind would easily be able to separate what they genuinely understand from what they merely recognize. But the massive twist in the source material is that high intelligence doesn't cure this illusion at all. It actually makes it significantly worse and much harder to detect.
Because intelligence doesn't automatically grant you a deeper structural understanding of the universe. Rather, it provides you with a much more sophisticated vocabulary to mask your ignorance.
Oh, that's dangerous.
Very. When highly intelligent people face a sudden gap in their knowledge, they don't necessarily pause and become more accurate in their self-assessments. They just become much more convincing to themselves and others.
They talk their way out of it.
Exactly. A high intellect acts as a powerful engine for manufacturing good-sounding explanations on the fly to cover up a lack of true depth. Because they are smart, they intuitively understand the cadence, structure, and vocabulary of what a logical argument should sound like, so they instantly build a formidable facade of one.
This sounds a lot like the Dunning-Kruger effect we're all familiar with.
Yeah, it does.
Where a lack of metacognition makes complete novices wildly overconfident because they literally lack the skill to see their own incompetence. But how does that dynamic apply to the actual experts, the people who really do have the high-level skills?
Well, the source text brings to light the rarely discussed flip side of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which specifically targets the highly competent, we can call it the expert blind spot.
The expert blind spot.
Right. Highly intelligent, highly skilled individuals make a completely different yet equally damaging mistake. They severely underestimate how much other people don't know. When an expert understands a complex topic deeply, say, a software engineer writing code, or a doctor diagnosing a common ailment, that knowledge becomes second nature. It feels incredibly simple to them.
Because they've done it 1,000 times.
Exactly. Because of that, they look out at the world and assume that what is undeniably obvious to them must be a shared baseline of reality for everyone else. They literally lose the cognitive ability to remember what it feels like to not know the information.
Wait, so you're saying that experts aren't actually assessing their audience when they communicate. They're just projecting their own baseline of knowledge onto a beginner and then getting frustrated when the beginner inevitably doesn't keep up.
That is exactly the friction point. You end up with this massive widening gap of misunderstanding.
It's a complete disconnect.
It is. On one side, the novices are fiercely overconfident in their ignorance. On the other side, the highly intelligent experts are confidently assuming everyone shares their extensive baseline of knowledge. This leads them to communicate poorly, skip crucial foundational steps, and judge others unfairly for not grasping the obvious.
So misplaced confidence is wreaking havoc on both ends of the spectrum.
Completely neutralizing effective communication.
So the expert is sitting there thinking, well, it's obvious, while the novice is confidently asserting something entirely wrong and neither's operating in shared reality.
Exactly.
That dynamic perfectly transitions us into how this intelligence camouflage interacts with highly polarizing issues. Our source material highlights a psychological phenomenon that is, frankly, a little terrifying.
It really is.
It points out that the more informed someone is on a deeply polarizing topic, a political issue, a social debate, a cultural flashpoint, the better they are at entirely dismissing contradictory evidence.
What's fascinating here is how this completely dismantles our cultural reverence for simply gathering more information. We like to tell ourselves that educating people, giving them more facts and data on a polarizing topic, makes them more balanced, more objective, and more willing to see all sides.
We want to believe that so badly.
We do. But cognitive studies consistently show the exact opposite is true for highly educated individuals engaging in motivated reasoning. Knowledge doesn't create intellectual balance. It merely provides you with a larger stockpile of ammunition to defend the ideological fortress you have already chosen to occupy.
Wow.
If you are highly intelligent and you read an exhaustive article that directly contradicts your worldview, you don't use your massive intellect to objectively evaluate the new data. You use it to relentlessly hunt for tiny methodological flaws, rhetorical weak points, or obscure logical fallacies to entirely neutralize the threat.
So to put that in perspective, it's like when a referee makes a highly controversial call against your favorite sports team.
Yes, great example.
You don't just sit back and say, I'm mad my team is losing. You suddenly become an armchair master of physics. You start calculating the exact trajectory of the ball, the player's momentum, and the visual angle of the referee to logically prove the ref is objectively blind.
Exactly. You weaponize your own brain against any new information.
You aren't seeking the truth at all. You are just acting as a highly paid defense attorney for your existing opinions.
And in those high-stakes moments, even the most highly educated individuals aren't actually looking for objective reality. They are fiercely protecting their identity.
Identity. That's the core of it.
It is. Our beliefs on polarizing issues rarely exist in a vacuum. They become completely intertwined with our sense of self, our community, and our moral standing. To admit we are fundamentally wrong isn't just a matter of factual correction. It registers in the brain as a literal attack on who we are.
A threat to our existence.
Yes. The philosopher John Gray provides a brilliant insight on this mechanism, which the source material quotes. He calls it the illusion of the deception of the intellect.
That is a dense, heavy phrase. The illusion of the deception of the intellect.
It is dense, but the core concept is universally relatable. Gray is suggesting that we genuinely, physically feel our beliefs are entirely rational. We look at our viewpoints and feel deep in our bones that we have arrived at our conclusions through pure, unadulterated logic and careful study.
We feel like we've done the work.
Right. But in reality, those supposedly cold, rational beliefs are often just elegantly dressed up desires, fears, and tribal loyalties. We subconsciously decide what we want to believe based on our loyalties to our social group, our deep-seated desires for how the world should operate, or the sheer protection of our own ego.
And then the brain just works backward.
Precisely. Only after that emotional decision is made does our intellect boot up, acting as an elite public relations firm working overtime to draft a seemingly flawless, rational justification for the belief we've already committed to.
So what does this all mean? If our intelligence is basically acting as a high-priced PR firm for our egos, and the more informed we become, the better we get at aggressively rejecting reality,
Yeah.
where does that leave the concept of the intellectual pursuit?
It leads us to a rather sobering synthesis about the limits of human cognition. We inherently assume that high intelligence naturally works to integrate all our acquired knowledge into a consistent, truthful, and harmonious whole.
But it doesn't.
It doesn't. Instead, high intelligence makes us incredibly, almost dangerously skilled at compartmentalizing. Smart people have highly refined, incredibly sophisticated mechanisms to avoid cognitive dissonance.
That deeply uncomfortable psychological friction you feel when you hold two conflicting beliefs.
Exactly. Instead of resolving that dissonance by humbly changing their mind or admitting a flaw in their logic, highly intelligent people just build elaborate mental walls. They segregate the conflicting facts. They rationalize the glaring contradictions so smoothly and with such impressive vocabulary that they never have to sit with the discomfort of being wrong.
They don't solve the maze. They just build a much more complex, multi-level maze to successfully hide the truth from themselves.
That's a perfect way to put it.
This entire breakdown really shifts how we should view public debates, expert panels, or even just the arguments we have around the dinner table. It all culminates in what the source material warns is the single most dangerous state of mind a human being can experience. They refer to it as the intoxication of certainty.
The intoxication of certainty. It is an incredibly accurate phrase because certainty functions in the human brain very much like a narcotic.
A drug.
Yes. It feels incredibly good, secure, and powerful to be absolutely, undeniably sure of yourself. It removes all the anxiety of ambiguity. But the text provides vital warning signs to look out for.
Which raises an important question for all of us to actively ask ourselves as we navigate the world.
Right. When do we cross the line from being informed to being intoxicated? The text suggests a clear threshold when you feel absolute, unshakable certainty about a deeply complex, nuanced issue.
When you find yourself dismissing another person's lived experience or opposing viewpoint without a single second of internal hesitation.
And crucially, when you feel a warm, deep sense of intellectual superiority over those who disagree with you, you need to stop.
That's a tough pill to swallow, though. It implies that the exact moment we feel most intellectually victorious, the moment we feel we've totally dominated the debate, is actually the exact moment we are most cognitively compromised.
Precisely. Because in those intoxicating moments of absolute certainty, you are not experiencing peak intelligence. You are experiencing your greatest cognitive vulnerability. You are entirely under the spell of the grand illusion.
Your intellect is no longer a tool for discovery,
It is a shield preventing it, making you entirely blind to your own blind spots.
which means if we take this source material seriously, we have to fundamentally redefine what it means to possess a truly intelligent mind.
We do.
If intelligence isn't about having all the answers, building the perfect impenetrable argument, and being able to flawlessly defend your stance against all comers, what is the actual metric?
The takeaway here completely shifts the goalposts. A truly intelligent mind isn't defined by its rigid level of conviction. It is defined by its endless capacity for curiosity.
Curiosity over conviction.
Yes. It isn't defined by achieving a state of absolute certainty, but by maintaining an ongoing, humble sense of wonder. True intelligence, the kind that actually expands our understanding of the universe and keeps us grounded in reality, only really begins in the exact moment our illusions of absolute knowledge end.
It requires the profound humility to accept that the definitive phrase, "I know," is very often a brick wall built directly across the path of further learning.
Absolutely. Embracing the uncomfortable fact that you might only understand the zipper of your worldview on a purely operational, surface level is the mandatory first step toward actual sustainable wisdom.
To bring this all home for you, the listener, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to mull over today as you go back to your routine. I want you to think about a deeply held, rock-solid belief you have right now.
Good luck.
It could be about a highly polarizing cultural issue. Or maybe it's just a fiercely strong opinion you hold about the absolute right way to do things in your specific industry. Look closely at that belief and ask yourself honestly, did you patiently, objectively gather the facts from all sides to form that belief from scratch? Or are you just using your considerable intelligence to brilliantly dress up and defend a loyalty you had already decided to protect long before the facts ever arrived?
A powerful question.
It is a deeply uncomfortable question to sit with, but maybe the most important one you can ask yourself if you genuinely want to understand the world. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today. Keep questioning your certainties, keep that sense of wonder alive, and we will catch you on the next one.